Of England was in treetops when her father died, and she got the call, and she and Prince Philip had to go back to England too. But treetops was fabulous. It was up off the ground, 2 stories, built up on telegraph pole type. And it was all enclosed by high fences. And when you got off the bus, you only take one bag with you to stay overnight. I think we're only allowed one overnight. I don't think it was 2. And you had to go up this ladder that was 2 stories high to get up there. And a guide came from the building down with a fixed bayonet with a gun, and he protected you from when you got out of the bus to go back into the building, because they were wild animals. Of course, we came probably I forgot what time of day, but wasn't at night or anything. We came in, and you had this one little room, was about the size of 2 bunks wide, and it had one window on the end that led out to the balcony, and then the door that you came in. And the accommodations were very small and not very, very fancy. So before we got down to supper, Ernie and I were getting ready to have a drink. We had a vodka bottle with us, and we were setting up. There was one little window at the end of this tiny room, and we set up a drink of vodka and crackers and cheese, and we were sitting on the 2 bunks. It was anything except 2 bunks, no chairs or anything. Very small and very primitive. And this hairy hand came in the window, reached over and took our crackers and cheese.
Oh gosh.
At least they didn't get the vodka.
I don't know if they wanted it.
Yeah, no,
Oh my
that's funny.
gosh.
Wow.
So then the place where you had supper, it was a very long, narrow room. The center was a table, and there was just room for you to sit next to the table. And then behind you was a wall, and it was a long room, probably 30 foot long at least. And at the center of this table was a plank about 14 inches or 12 to 14 inches wide. And the food was put on this plank, and the plank moved down the center of the table. So you were sitting there with an empty plate in front of you, and as this plank went by, you took off the food you wanted and put it on your plate. There was nobody behind you. There was a wall behind you, so nobody could come behind and wait on you in any way.
Right.
And the other side of the table was the same thing. There was no room to go around and serve people individually. So you just, and then the plank moved back up the table. So you just,
Was it on rollers or a machine, or did people move it?
it slid in the middle of the table, and I don't know what did it.
Huh.
And then it went back up again, and that was the end of that. Was as elegant as you got on the supper. And the chimpanzees, now there was a building around, and with these very small rooms, and then around the whole thing was a balcony, probably 20 foot wide, that went all around the complete area, and at the edge of the balcony was a railing, probably 4 foot high or less. And there were chimpanzees that were out there all the time. They were sitting on the edge of the railing, and they warned you, don't have a pocketbook or don't have anything. The chimpanzees just help themselves to anything.
Right.
And there was one fellow who was bringing candy, and he was giving it to the chimpanzees, and he had it in his pocket, and he wasn't fast enough, feeding them fast enough to keep them happy. So they reached around into his pocket to help themselves.
Wow.
Then he got a little nervous about that. And on the trees around the treetop, which is 2 stories high, there were great big trees, probably 500 feet tall and that. And in these trees was film from people's camera draped around different branches.
Right.
And the chimpanzees had taken the tourist cameras and gone
Played
up
around.
to the chips
Oh,
into the trees and opened them up and decorated the trees with the film.
Wow. With all their favorite pictures, I'm sure. Wow.
So you were warned that way. And then in the late afternoon, they served coffee and cake, English style, at the balcony. And they warned you, just hold on to your own
yeah.
and watch for the chimpanzees will grab anything if you let them. So you had coffee and tea out there. And it was very interesting people. Oh, and all night long, this is up 2 stories high. So this was built actually on a feeding hole in the ground, whatever you call it. What do you call those?
Trough?
Or watering hole?
A watering hole. And the wild animals came there at this watering hole, and they were there before the building was built. And it was built around there so you could see, and they still came. That was their area, and they still came to that watering hole all the time. And they had lights from the building that showed underneath the building because we were up 2 stories high. And the animals came all night. The night animals came at night. Of course, the morning was different animals coming. So people were watching 24 hours a day.
Wow.
You were only allowed to be there. I'm not sure it was just 1 or 2 days, but no longer. You were, no matter who you were, you couldn't stay any longer. So people would stay awake all night and walk around on the deck to see the animals and take pictures. And one night there was the water buffaloes were there. Oh, and the hyenas were there. And one night the hyenas attacked a water buffalo, and they were eating him alive, and he's screaming.
Oof.
And the tourists are all very upset about that, and they wanted the white hunter, whatever they call them, the ones that had the uniforms on and had their guns out all the time, and they wanted him to kill the buffalo. They said no. He said no. I'm not allowed to interfere. We're here to watch nature.
Yeah.
Right.
So
They saw the show, whether they wanted to see it or not.
Yeah.
well, you heard it whether you wanted to see
Ugh.
it.
Yeah.
You could look the other way, but
That'd be hard.
Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it that night.
What did you see?
I saw the water buffaloes coming to watch the water, and there were quite a few other things. There were snakes and quite a few things that they had a naturalist describing to you very well exactly what was going on. And the show lasted 24 hours a day.
Right?
So anybody who could stay up could see it. And at different hours of the night, different animals came and they told you who was what. And the lights were on underneath the building, but not out beyond in the jungle. On the watering hole, there was lights all night. So, and they'd tell you who was coming about what time of night, and they described. There was somebody describing to you all night long what you were seeing. So if you could stay awake, you could stay out in the balcony all night and see everything. And the morning came, and the morning came. The lights came, the deers came down to have their morning water at this watering hole. It was built in a place where the animals owned it and came,
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
and they didn't interfere with what was going on. And like I said, even with the buffalo being eaten alive, it was to watch nature, not interfere.
Right.
So it was very. Very, very unusual.
Yeah.
You really were out there in the animals' territory, watching them, which was, they weren't interfered with, and they just had the one pair of steps going up to where you were, so you were